I feel so alive. There's a war going on outside, no birds around here, just bullets that fly. There's a war going on outside, there's death everywhere, but I feel so alive. I feel so alive. Dear Mr. George Bush, why do you insist to make a fool of us? For over 200 years, we stood for what's good, now we despised by peers. This ain't gonna last for long, they wish us dead, George, yo, they wish us gone. And what do you do but add fuel to the fire and send in more troops?
Iraqi-American rapper Times here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
With the Democrats in control of Congress for the first time in the Bush administration, the White House is finally being called to task on various aspects of the Iraq war, from the mishandling of billions in reconstruction dollars to the use of private military contractors. But there is no congressional oversight on another defining issue of the Bush presidency, 9/11. Questions remain over whether Israeli agents tracking the 9/11 hijackers were tracking the 9/11 hijackers before September 11th.
This one we can't claim as an exclusive. ABC's 2020 did this story. The Jewish newspaper The Forward also did it. Salon also covered the story. But where's the follow-up? Freelance journalist Christopher Ketchum has just published a comprehensive piece on this story in the newsletter Counterpunch. The article highlights various interconnected stories. The 5 Israeli movers who witnesses say were cheering after the first plane struck the World Trade Center, the so-called Israeli art students who were living in concentrated areas where hijackers were living in the United States, and how 2 of the hijackers ended up on the watch list weeks before 9/11. Christopher Ketchum, the author of the article, joins us online from upstate New York. Alexander Coburn also joins us on the phone. He's the editor of Counterpunch, where the piece is published. And with us here in the Firehouse studio is Mark Perlman. He is the reporter who did one of the first reports on the story for the newspaper The Forward in 2002. Why don't we begin with Christopher Ketchum? Christopher, start off with the story you begin with in this latest piece. And that's the story of the 5 so-called movers, this story that has been documented, talked about, rumored about. Explain what happened that morning of 9/11.
Sure. Let me just preface this whole conversation just to say that the Counterpunch article does not pretend to provide readers with a definitive smoking gun for these allegations. Rather, what I've done is gathered all the available information on the matter, that is the disparate media reports that you mentioned, leaked documents from FBI, CIA, and the Justice Department, conversations with former intelligence officials and current FBI officers. Now, the upshot of all this available evidence is this. The Israeli government likely was conducting some kind of spy operation on U.S. soil in the run-up to the September 11th attacks. The purpose of the operation was to identify and track Muslim extremists, possibly including members of al-Qaeda. Now, the best evidence that we have for this is, in fact, the story of these 5 moving men. Now, 3 of these guys were seen on the morning of September 11th, just after the first plane hit the North Tower, quote-unquote, celebrating on the New Jersey waterfront. Now, I put the quotes around that because it comes from a FBI BOLO, or Be On Lookout, an alert that was put out regarding these men that day. The celebration apparently consisted of high-fiving, according to one FBI official, of holding up cigarette lighters as if they're at a rock concert. So remember, the plane has just hit the tower, exploded in the tower, and these 3 men are behaving rather oddly. Later in the day, they were picked up. 2 other men had apparently joined them in a van. The case was immediately handed over to FBI counterintelligence. The men were held for 71 days. They were repeatedly interrogated. They were, they repeatedly failed lie detector tests. And then after those 71 days was up, they were sent home, apparently under pressure, or because of pressure brought by the Israeli government and by certain players in the U.S. government. And the story sort of disappeared from there. I mean, 2020 covered this.
Chris Ketchum, you say, you quote the officer who arrested them, named DiCarlo. You say, according to DiCarlo's report, this officer was told without question by the driver of the moving van, Sivan Kurzberg, "We are Israeli. We are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are the problem."
Right. Well, what's interesting there is that you recall after the first plane hit, no one really thought that this was a terrorist attack. I mean, most people thought, and I was there, on the Brooklyn waterfront watching this whole thing. Everyone thought it was an accident. These guys, when they were interrogated by FBI, told them that essentially said that they immediately knew it was a terrorist attack, and they actually told FBI that the reason they were celebrating was because the attacks would be beneficial to Israel, that it was a, quote, a good thing for Israel. That's according to the FBI spokesman who spoke on the record about this, and that it would bring sympathy for Israel's political agenda in the Middle East.
And if I can interrupt, I'd like to bring in Mark Perlman to the conversation. Mark, it was your newspaper that the Forward that first broke the story that the FBI thought that at least a couple of these people were Mossad agents. Could you talk about that and how you uncovered that information?
Yes, we ended up writing a story in March of 2002 after several months of reporting, because when this incident happened, obviously a lot of people were intrigued, including journalists, and so everybody was trying to find more information about this. And I've been talking to sources and trying to find out a little bit more, and after a while I was able to confirm that according to the FBI, 2 of those movers were identified as Mossad agents. And they were interrogated about it. Obviously, the circumstances around the interrogation, there was a lot of panic after 9/11. People were looking for suspects everywhere. So the reports about exactly how they were behaving and what they said, I mean, we should be a little bit careful about this because, and so what I tried to do is go beyond the reports about them smiling and high-fiving and so on, because I had my doubts about this. I still have them, by the way. And so what I did was try to back